India's Prime Minister Narendra Modi also expressed shock at the news of shooting at Slovakia's Prime Minister Robert Fico. Taking to X, PM Modi said, and I quote, "I strongly condemn this cowardly and dastardly act and wish PM Fico a speedy recovery. India stands in solidarity with the people of Slovak Republic." All right, news coming in from Russia, wherein Russian military is advancing in all directions and establishing its position in several locations in Ukraine. And this was asserted by Sergei Shoigu, the Secretary of Russia's Security Council, during a visit to Beijing. He also said that a main task is to conduct military operations in Ukraine. Meanwhile, Ukraine also claimed that Russian forces were establishing positions in Ukraine's Vovchansk town in the Kharkiv region. With these military advancements in the northern region, Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky has postponed all upcoming foreign visits. Well, the Russian Defense Ministry said on Thursday that its air defense forces destroyed 5 long-range missiles, US-supplied Army tactical missile systems known as ATACMS, that Ukraine's military launched overnight at Crimea. The Russia-installed governor of the Crimean port of Sevastopol said that several residential houses and cars were damaged. No people were hurt, according to the local authorities. Russia annexed Crimea from Ukraine 10 years ago in a move broadly condemned by Kyiv's Western allies. All right, and for more on this, DD India's Dasha Chernyshova joins us. Dasha, Sergei Shoigu, the Secretary of Russia's Security Council, he said that Russian military is advancing in all directions in Ukraine and that their main task is to conduct military operations in Ukraine. How do you assess this?
Well, that's the clear indication that Russia is going to press with its operation in Ukraine, and that has been repeatedly stated by the Russian officials. Now we understand that the Russian forces are on the upper footing in all directions on the battlefield, with the Russian president even saying the day before that everything goes according to the plan. The words we haven't heard for a while now. So the understanding at the moment is that there is enough reserves in terms of the manpower, in terms of the military equipment and ammunition, according to Shoigu, to continue with the ongoing operation. We also understand from the Russian authorities that the nomination of Andrei Belousov, a veteran economist, to the position of Russia's Minister of Defense is there to make sure that the military spending in Russia, which has increased doublefold, is in order to make sure that Russia achieves its goals of what it says demilitarization and denazification of Ukraine. So many analysts are saying that Russia's moves are only the indication that Russia is in this operation for the long haul. But also keep in mind that Moscow portrays the operation as the existential fight between Moscow and the West.
All right, Dasha, Ukraine-Russian forces are also fighting inside the northeastern city of Vovchansk. Any update of the situation there right now?
Well, not from the Russian Ministry of Defense. What we have heard, though, is that the Russian forces have been advancing and improving their positions on the Kharkiv direction. They have, on a daily basis for the past 5 days, been reporting about the capture of more villages. Now, some of the reports suggest that at the moment the Russian armed forces are fighting in Lipsky, and the understanding is that what Moscow is trying to do is to create the so-called sanitary zone, because Kharkiv region is the area that borders Russia's Belgorod region that has been repeatedly under the Ukrainian shelling. So the Russian authorities have always been saying that they might have to consider the need to create this sanitary buffer zone to prevent the long-range missiles from reaching the Russian Federation. Those are the missiles actually supplied from the Western countries. So that could be the reason why Russia is pushing in this direction so actively. And obviously from the side of the Russian military, the understanding is very clear. They are pressing on all directions, at least as they say.
All right, we leave it there. Thank you so much, Dasha, for joining in and for your analysis. Meanwhile, Swiss president has said that a summit that Switzerland hopes will pave the way for a peace process in Ukraine has drawn delegations from more than 50 countries. President said that the neutral Swiss government was seeking a broad-based turnout from different parts of the world and 160 invitations were sent. Switzerland wants to persuade more countries from global south as well as China to sign up, she added. Well, the Kremlin said that Switzerland conference will be futile without the participation of Russia. Kremlin spokesperson Dmitry Peskov said that without Russia, discussing security issues that concern us is absolutely futile. He further added that it is most likely to be just empty scholasticism with no prospect of getting some tangible result. The military leaders of NATO will meet in Brussels to discuss the defense of alliance and support for Ukraine. Well, this comes as Russian invaders continue to advance towards Ukraine's second largest city of Kharkiv. Alex Kadia reports from Brussels. Have a look.
Well, a big focus for this meeting of NATO's military committee will, of course, be Ukraine. We know that Russian invading forces are moving closer to the second largest city in Ukraine, in Kharkiv. We know that Ukrainian forces have been able to push back some of that Russian advance in some of the neighboring villages, but it will be a real concern. We also know that Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky has cancelled several international trips, including one to Spain and possibly one to here in Belgium, very much concerned with the situation in his country, and that will be the case for those NATO military leaders, the more than 30 members of the NATO alliance gathering, those top military commanders coordinating their efforts both for the defense of the alliance but also for support for Ukraine. We know that has been a top priority for Secretary General and for Rob Bauer, the chair of NATO's military commander as well. And we know the United States announcing just in the last couple of days an extra $2 billion in military support for Ukraine, certainly a much needed boost. We know the Ukrainians have also said they need more equipment to push back this Russian advance. Now, as I mentioned, the defense of the NATO alliance will also be a really important topic discussed by these military leaders here in Brussels. We know that as a defensive alliance, it is now renewing what it calls its regional plans, its plans for the defense of Europe should there be an attack on this continent. That will be discussed all in the run-up to a summit of NATO leaders in Washington, D.C. in July. But in the short term, the focus remains very squarely on Ukraine. Alex Kadia in Brussels reporting for DD India.
And as the fighting between Israel and Hamas intensified in Gaza, 5 Israeli soldiers were killed and several injured in the northern Gaza Strip after being struck by Israeli tank fire. The Israeli military said that there was a tank crossfire of the 202 Battalion. Israeli ground forces re-entered parts of northern Gaza this month to prevent Hamas from regrouping.